There's lots of different ways people use for defining the digital economy. Kind of from a formal definition, it's something like all economic activity that's mediated by software. But we really focus on one part of the digital economy, which is that part that telephone companies, telcos, wireless, wireline, cable, satellite are involved in. So it's really a part of it. But they're of course involved in all of it in some way because it's all the communications piece underneath it. But increasingly, they're getting involved in other things other than just the communications piece. Operator involvement in the digital economy really breaks down into three major areas. The first one is how do they themselves become digital economy providers? Every business in the world, I used to say except for hair salons until my local hair salons went online for scheduling. Every business needs to become a digital economy provider, needs to have that digital interface that gets to the people who are digitally oriented. And increasingly, it's not just the young, it's all of us. The second one is to get into some new digital economy services. These are non-traditional services for a telephone company. And they involve things like connected home, connected city, especially things like security or home energy control, home networking. These things that are all becoming a part of our life that are going to get bundled in with the original communication services that have always been provided, making a much larger bundle. Now we know that bundles really help in terms of reducing churn. We know that when you bundle properly, you can reduce churn by about a third. Much stickier. It's great. Much long-term revenue. We also know that about 50% of the people want to interact with the companies in a digital manner. So put these two things together, and it really means going into all these new services, new sources of revenue, which is sorely needed. The third aspect is even more complicated. It is enabling all of those other businesses that need to become digital economy providers, enabling them to become digital economy providers quickly and cheaply. Amazon and Facebook and everyone built up this huge IT infrastructure in order to become digital economy providers. Companies can't afford to do that themselves, and they don't have the expertise to do that themselves. So they need to go to partners. Who better to go to than someone who already provides the underlying communication structure and who you're dealing with on a monthly basis anyway? So the operators are perfectly positioned to become these purveyors of all the the services that allow operators to become digital economy providers themselves. But there's a lot more to the digital economy than just the underlying communications infrastructure. Two new pieces have become just as important. Number one, computing power. The ability to run software, large virtualized data centers in the cloud, however you want to say it. But the important thing is large amount of computing power and the software that runs on that computing power. And lastly, of course, those wonderful devices that we hold in our hands or that we type on that allows us a very, very good user interface. CSPs who've traditionally run closed gardens, as we used to call it, basically doing everything themselves, have really begun to understand the importance of partnering with others, in some cases buying others, in order to enhance their position in the digital economy. Absolutely, it's going to be a much richer environment here of partnering that's going to be required to go after this. Yes, this is a new competency that the operators have to create for themselves, but it's a whole new world out there, and it's moving fast, so fast that the traditional operators just can't do it all themselves. They need those partners. Of course, a big topic these days is virtualization. We've talked about virtualization of software, virtualization of network functions, NFV, network function virtualization, software-defined networks, SDN. And you might wonder, is this going to help or hurt the whole move to the digital economy? Well, it's going to help. What it's really going to do is take that very important software infrastructure and make it much cheaper to operate and much more flexible to operate. It's also going to do the same to much of the underlying communications infrastructure. NFV is going to make that much more successful, much easier to plan. You're only going to have to buy the equipment that you really need right now, because you're going to spin up virtual examples of equipment that you used to have to buy and install. So it's going to happen fast, it's going to happen just as much as you need and not more than you need. So we like to say that the investment is going to match the success of the services in the future. Right now I'm engaged in research in 3 major areas, besides the general digital economy. Social media, the use of social media in operations here, very important part of the digital economy becoming a good digital economy provider. Number 2, M2M, machine to machine or Internet of Thing operations. How are companies really implementing this? What software are they using to do it? What operations techniques are they doing in order to provide really good service to the car companies, to the transportation companies, etc. And third, working on vendors who are doing things in the cloud, all these new cloud vendors. So we find people who are selling APIs, people who are selling virtual devices, people who are selling software on here, and all the software infrastructure that goes with that to buy these things and then implement in the cloud. All 3 of these are active on our research program right now, and you'll be seeing these coming out in the next couple of months in our research programs.